Hello and welcome to We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset Regional High School's AP Government and Politics class in collaboration with Nauset's video production class. During the next 30 minutes, our panel, made up of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, will discuss an ongoing controversy involving Apple Computer, the U.S. government, and the San Bernardino terrorist attack. At issue is whether or not Apple Computer can be forced to help federal law enforcement officials unlock privacy settings on an iPhone belonging to one of the terrorists, and what impact that action may or may not have with the privacy of millions of iPhone users around the world. I'm your guest host, Jacob Hirschberger, a junior here at Nauset Regional High School and a veteran of the AP Government class. Just for the record, opinions expressed here belong to the panelists and are not the views of Nauset Regional High School or Nauset Regional School District. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a special email address for our panel today. Please feel free to email us your thoughts, suggestions about today's topic so we can continue this discussion in our classroom. Now, let's meet our panel. On the left, we have people arguing for Apple, and on the right, for the FBI. You have the floor.
We believe that the FBI is overstepping their authority by not only threatening the privacy of citizens, but also violating Apple's First Amendment rights.
What do you guys have to say about that?
We believe that Apple has that the FBI does have the grounds to make Apple unlock the San Bernardino shooter's phone because it could help get information about anyone else they were working with and help prevent other terrorist attacks from happening.
The problem is that the FBI already has lots of information about the terrorist attack. They already have all the metadata from the terrorist phone, and they caught somebody who gave them information about the radicalization of the terrorist, and he sold them arms. And they also have much more information from social media. So they don't really how much information could they actually get from this? What else is there?
There's not really a problem to unlock the phone anyway, because even though the current iOS is 9.2.1, in a few months, the shooter's phone was an iOS 8, but that's irrelevant to the fact. In a few months, there will be a new iOS update anyway, so it'll be a new encryption software, so it won't even affect getting into people's phone if they update their software.
And by unlocking the phone, then there will be closure for the families of the 14 people who were killed in the shooting. And when the iPhone is unlocked, then the FBI will have information to see if the shooters were working with anyone else, which will in turn help another shooting and save lives.
But what other information do they need? They already have text messages, phone calls, and email history.
There could always be more things on the phone that they can find. We don't 100% know what there is not on the phone and what there is on the phone. There's only one way to find out, is to unlock it.
Well, do you know how they open up the iPhone?
If they were to unlock the iPhone, what the Apple would be giving the government is they would be giving the government the information on how to unlock the iPhone, and the government would need Apple's key encryptions, like the codes from Apple, in order to unlock it. They would also have to have the iPhone in their possession. And so if the issue is that hackers or someone else is going to get the information from the government in order to break into someone's phone, then they would need to have the information from Apple, the encryptions, in order to open the phone. And they would also have to have the phone in their personal possession, because the phone cannot be unlocked without having the phone in their personal possession. So it's unlikely that the hackers are going to hack into a phone if they don't have it in their possession, and they would also need the information given from Apple to the government, which is very unlikely for them to do that.
But if you were about to commit an act of terrorism and you knew that the FBI was going to take your phone and you knew that you had information on your phone that would help the FBI find people that you were connected to, what would you do with it? Wouldn't you just delete it? Who would keep that information, basically handing it to the FBI?
I'm not 100% sure all terrorists or criminals in general are smart enough to go a step ahead of the FBI.
But they're already smart enough to...
The fact that he actually carried through with this terrorist attack proves that they were a step ahead of the FBI.
Well, Apple has already built backdoors for China, so why can't they do it for the FBI?
That's not true.
There is an article that says that Apple has helped the FBI WAPI wireless standard, and there are Chinese state media reports that say that Apple has helped to turn over source codes to the Chinese government. So what's the issue if they do it to the FBI, because it will also help us. They did it to China for no reason, but if they hand it to us, then it will help us find closure for the San Bernardino case.
The real point is
Apple
the United
contends
States
that
is.
they don't
Oh,
help
okay.
any country more than the other. They don't give China any information that they don't give the United States. They're not just trying. They're not like they wouldn't hand over more information about people to a
To another
strong
country.
regime that has problems with torturing people. They and not do the same to the United States.
Well, they would because China is now its biggest market, so that gives a reason for them.
But why would they turn the U.S. people over to China? Like they're giving you say that they're giving information of the U.S. people to China. Like, no.
Well, the FBI is going to let Apple build and upload the software for by itself. The government isn't going to build the software. Apple is, so Apple can make sure that it's safe. And the FBI isn't asking access to all the iPhones. The FBI is only asking access for this one iPhone. And just like John said, the iOS is going to change in a few months anyway, so it's not like the government will have access to all the iPhones, especially because they won't have the Apple encryptions and the phones in their possession in order to hack into the other iPhones.
That's not as big of a problem as the dangerous precedent that it sets. What's to stop the FBI from claiming and the federal government from claiming that since Apple helped them in this case, they must help them in cases in the future?
And you said that the FBI is letting Apple make new software. They're forcing Apple to make the new software.
Well, the FBI's legal argument is the All Writs Act, which gives the judge the general authority to demand appliance with court orders as long as it doesn't impose undue burden, and there's no undue burden being opposed to Apple. They only need to unlock the one iPhone. The government isn't asking for access to all the iPhones, and in order to get into the iPhones, they'll need Apple's permission with the keys. So there's no getting into all of the iPhones. It's not a matter of like everyone's personal security. It's just this one iPhone.
Yeah, but this
You
one
wanna go? Okay. This is a cool.
this one key that you're saying, Apple says that it's like a master key. It can open
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of locks.
But the FBI,
Not just this one.
the FBI even said they were willing to allow Apple to work on the phone at its own Apple's headquarters. So that doesn't actually give an encryption like a risk of any other phones, considering that's actually being monitored by Apple.
The fact that comes down to plate is the United States is a democracy, and it says in the preamble of the Constitution, we the people rule. It's more than half Americans agree with the FBI and say that, and they agree with the FBI saying that Apple should unlock the phone. And if I may use an example here, Donald Trump is the lead candidate for the Republican Party, and even though some people have I'm not supporting Trump in any way. I want to point that out. All I'm saying is he's most likely going to be the Republican nominee for president, even though many people, have very, very harsh criticisms of him. But this is a democracy, and the people want what the people want.
You said that over half of Americans believe that the FBI should unlock the phone, but I have a poll from WSJ and NBC that says that 42% of Americans believe Apple should comply, and 47% say that they shouldn't, which is a clear split.
I have a website that says 51% of people agree that iPhones
I've
should
seen
be
that.
unlocked.
This is
Well,
the
national
split.
this
So
is
polls don't
literally
really reflect
The
anything.
problem with
It doesn't
polls is there's a
matter.
margin of error, and we can't be sure on who's right, who's wrong. You look at with the elections, polls sometimes say one thing, and a candidate climbs up at the end. You don't really know too much with polls, so I'd stay away from polls and focus on this law that you mentioned, which it is from 1789. So do you believe this law is out of date, or do you think it should still hold true?
I don't think the law is out of date, only because the Constitution was written in 1787, and we still use the Constitution today. That's what our government is run by. It's
And
the
that was
supreme
written
law of
before
the
this
land, and we still use everything that's written in it, all the articles and all the amendments, even new ones. And it doesn't matter what year this is written in. The framers were around and they know what's happening. So
But the law they had was not necessarily for iPhones. That's the other argument, where the technology is changing around the world. So
That's why
Or
you have
can you
to
say
think
the
of-
laws that have to do with search and seizure, which is what this one
That's why you have
is.
to think of it in an institutional activism thought that the Constitution is a living, breathing document, and stuff is changing. But this is what it's based off of, and that's where you have to come from.
You brought up the Constitution, and the Constitution also has the First Amendment, which protects the right of free speech. And in the past, code has been ruled as free speech. So for the government to force Apple to do this should be considered as compelled speech.
This comes
They're
down to
forcing
Apple choosing to
write
protect
something,
ISIS's privacy.
And that's not, the government does not have the right to force you to say something in the same way that the government doesn't have the right to force an artist to make a work of art.
Okay, what if I said to you that if we didn't unlock this phone, someone in your family, maybe in a couple months, was killed by one of the terrorists that we would have found through this phone, unlocking this phone?
I don't think that. Well, wow,
It's
that is
obviously-
terrible.
obviously
I don't
that's
think
just an
the
example.
The risk of invasion of privacy, and like hackers, if they invade your privacy, they can also kill you because all of your information is stored on your phone,
Okay,
and
there's.
that leads to crime.
What do you
just
have on
as
your phone
terrorists.
personally that you wouldn't want other people to know?
I have my birthday. I have all my family members. I have where I live.
The
That's
government
all
already has that
information.
information.
Yeah,
Yes,
you-
the government
in their
does
That-
have
a,
that.
a lot of those things are public
that
records.
helps-
But it would be
That
leaked to
helps
everybody
people.
else.
You also
Not
have
just
to. You
the
also
government.
I
to
didn't
unlock
know
the phone.
that.
You also have to get the phone in your personal possession. So I mean, if I'm a hacker, if you're sitting right there, I can't do anything. I have to physically take your
But with
phone.
the new software that the FBI wants Apple to create, it could unlock every single phone. That if a hacker.
But when the new iOS comes out, it's not even going to matter.
And Apple
It
is
sets a
creating the
precedent.
software, so Apple is in charge of making sure that the software can't be hacked into. Because
But
the
Apple is
FBI
not-
isn't the one providing
Apple
it.
is not making the software.
And also, Apple actually
Yeah, it's
already
allowing them
monitors its customers to like help with. They already expect their continual monitoring of information in order to get like information on services and apps. So currently, if they're already monitoring their information, you can't really like say that they're going to be monitoring more. If they're
Wouldn't citizens care more about their safety and well-being than some silly
But
things
they
like
are
talking to
concerned
your
about their
friends
own
on your
privacy.
What
phone?
about
I
your
think
own
that
privacy?
I think that the argument across the nation would prove that's not true.
I feel like Americans have to, or not me personally, a lot of people think the same way I'm thinking. Americans have to be more mature. If it comes up, if you say to many Americans restricting any of their freedoms at all, you don't even tell them what you're restricting. They're immediately going to say no. You just have to think about it. What if the freedom, for example, is this? It's a difference between the government protecting your well-being or getting in your phone for only a few months. And all you have to do is update your phone in a few months.
The government is by not forcing Apple to do this, the government is protecting our well-being.
How so?
They're
Because
protecting
they're
our
protecting our
privacy.
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 No one is asking Apple to hand over a blanket key to all of the iPhones. They're
Yet.
simply
The
just
FBI
asking
is.
the release of
You
one
can't use that
iPhone.
discussion because you don't know
for
if they're actually
a-
going to.
Nobody does. That's the point. Nobody knows what they're going to do in the future based on this.
The
how
government
can
says
you
that
say
they're
that they're
just doing
going
it on
to?
this one iPhone, but
could
let's
unlock
be
any
real.
of them.
Like they're probably gonna ask them again
Yeah.
at some other point.
don't
Once they
know
have,
that.
Yeah,
once
you
they
don't know.
have
You
this
can't
power,
just say-
what's to stop them from doing it
The
again?
New York governor has stated that he has approximately 140 iPhones that he would like to unlock if the software would to be created. So
Just
this
'cause
rais-
he says he
this
wants to
raise-
doesn't mean it's going to
This raises
happen.
a question of how would, if this software was created, how would we regulate it? How would we be able to trust the government to use it responsibly?
I feel like they're going to have to figure that out. I mean, we can't. I can't specifically talk for the FBI and say exactly what they're going to do to make sure they can't just use this against Apple like ever again.
Well,
Because
also, they wouldn't actually have the software because actually, according to FBI, if it's only going to be for that one phone, and they said that it's going to happen at the Apple's headquarters, it's really not going to be used for other cases. And so it's not.
The software can be changed after the FBI has already gotten access to it and gotten into the phone. Then Apple can go and change the software so that the government will no longer be able to get into the phone. And if they're going to get into your phones, then they have to have the phone in their possession. They're not going to go and steal your phone and have it in your possession along with getting the information from the government on how to unlock your phone. They'll need the encryptions from Apple in
Right
order to
now.
hack into your phone.
Let me interject for one moment. We're reminding you that you're watching We the Students, a public affairs political discussion of AP government students at Nauset Regional High School. At the bottom of your screen is a special email address for our panel. Please feel free to email us your thoughts and suggestions about today's topic so we can continue this discussion in our government classroom. There we go.
So once the government likes to expand their powers, so once they've established that they can do this to Apple, then they're going to try to expand it. And the danger is that in the future, the government might request that Apple make a back door for the government to get into, or install software that forces Apple to spy on its own customers. And that leaves dangerous gaps in the security software for hackers.
In
And
addition-
people
Plus,
can't
that's
get into.
against.
We're talking
like,
about this one, not the
Apple's-
future.
You can't
right
guarantee
now.
But this
that that's
case
going
affects
to
the future.
happen. And even if that happens, then they can change their software so it doesn't happen again. The government is only asking for this one iPhone for this one case.
It's not
and
about
if
the
they
software.
do it in the future, then that's another issue.
It's
We're
not about
debating-
the software. It's about the precedent that it sets.
In
Because
addition-
the software will change over time, no matter what. So it's about what will happen in the future. You can't just
That's
think
a
in the
different
short
issue.
term.
Those will be under
They're-
different circumstances.
They go
The
together.
reason why the FBI wants the iPhone unlocked is so that they can see how the couple that did the shootings, if they were related directly to the Islamic State, which will help prevent other attacks like this, hurting people and killing innocent lives.
It's just unfortunate that Apple continues to resist to help the FBI when there was a terrorist attack on U.S. soil.
Apple
No,
did
Apple
help the
did help
FBI.
them. They gave them
I'm
all
saying
the
there's more that they
information.
can do, though. There's more that they can do to help.
Apple physically does not have the capability to give the FBI this information. They need to go and rewrite code and find this information. Apple can't even
And they're
access
saying that they
this.
won't do it. That's the thing. It's not like
Because
they tried
it's
to do
compelling
it.
speech. They don't have to. Code is speech.
Speech isn't guaranteed. No freedom is specifically guaranteed. There's always
That's
different.
true.
But they shouldn't be
this isn't-
forced to do something that they don't feel is right to their company.
A lot
In
of
order
people
to
are
help
forced to do things
America?
It's an.
It's better to help. It's better to help more citizens stay their. It's better to help the citizens because their information will be kept private instead of.
We can't just
Privacy is more
rationalize
important
everything
than
by
Because
saying
our
it would help
country.
government
America.
officials could also, their phones could also be leaked because of this backdoor, and that could. That's a big risk that Apple would be willing to
Well,
take.
would you rather have your privacy or your safety at stake?
Your
Well-
privacy. Because
Yeah,
what
because
if,
if
because
your
what if
pri-
you're in contact with a government official relaying your private information and their phone is leaked? That could be a danger to you and the rest of your family.
And if you think about it, the only way that the FBI would be able to stop future terrorists by looking into people's phones is if they had the capability to do this in everybody's phone. It's
Which they
like
Apple needs to
And
understand that it's
that
the government.
isn't-
We're just asking them to do it for this one specific phone. We're not asking them to redesign their whole software and Apple products.
then you
But
can't
that's what it
argue
takes
it's going
to
to
do
help
bring up a
terrorists
good
in the
point,
future.
Jay. A CEO of a software company, John McAfee, claims that he can do just that, unbreak this one phone. However, Apple says that's impossible. That they would have to write it for all phones. So clearly, there's a debate there to be had. That can they do it for one phone or can they do it for all phones? Apple says they
saying- yeah,
personally will not be
like,
able to do
who
it.
are we to say? Who are we to say? I mean, like we're obviously not experts in this technology-based like this stuff. That's between them. I don't know specifically who has the right information and who doesn't. But the FBI has been saying, Apple has been telling the FBI, not 100%. They're back and forth on specific things, saying that they can't do it for this one phone. But there's been who's that man again?
John McAfee.
John Mac. There's been many other technician experts that have said otherwise. The same with John McAfee.
Also, Senator, if we want to talk about the federal government about it, Lindsey Graham has reversed his opinion. He originally thought it could be one iPhone, and now says that it would be multiple iPhones. So,
Who's
Like-
Lindsey Graham to say that he knows everything about this?
Lindsey Graham is, I'm pretty sure he's a member of the Senate National Security or the Senate.
National
what-
security, but that doesn't mean he knows.
Well-
National Security. And he
Wasn't
he's
finished,
been
sorry.
in here. He's, never mind.
I'm saying he doesn't. Just because national security doesn't specifically have to do with knowing how to unlock a phone.
And the court is ordering the company to disable the feature on the iPhones that wipes the information on it after 10 incorrect tries to the password. And so the FBI isn't asking for a description for the passwords to all of the iPhones. They're only asking for an unlimited number of passcodes to the one iPhone to get into without the information being deleted.
And also,
This
I
is-
think we've established
if you look
that.
at other cases that like he was talking about the 1700s, the case, that was a law. But Supreme Court has ruled over like 5 or 6 times that they have the right to, they have to comply with the request. Like back in the United States versus New York Telephone Company in 1977, the court ruled the phone company had to comply with the request to monitor their, the numbers that the phone called. And like even more recent, like 1979, they said there's no warrant required to use pen registers to track telephone usage.
The
All this
problem
discussion
is that
has
none of this is present, and and none of this actually
It's not
like.
present.
No, from the 70s, the iPhone wasn't invented until the mid 2000s. So none of those cases have
And
like,
2010,
none of those
there's a recent case
None of those rulings understand like the capabilities of the iPhone. It's a miniature computer that stores all of your information.
So how does the 2010 case not realize the features of an iPhone of City Ontario versus Quantum, that they said that it didn't violate the 4th Amendment when it audited pager text messages?
They have
So
the text
how does that
messages.
not even,
They
how
have
is
the
that
text
not
messages
recent?
from
FBI
Calls and email
has text
history.
messages. They got that from the metadata.
That
And
case isn't relevant.
Then how is it the fact that they actually, the people who own the phone, the County of San Bernardino, they actually consented to it being searched, but since it was Rizwan Farouk's phone, he since he's dead, he had the passcode. So really, if the people who own the phone consent to it being searched, how is it even like a argument about that?
Because it's his personal, it's his
It's not.
Apple
It's,
doesn't have
it
the
was
passcode.
their
that's
phone.
a
It
that's a
wasn't
different
his-
problem.
the
Like
work
in the
phone.
future, to correct that, they maybe the companies that own the phones could request passwords from their employees, but in the present, there's nothing that they can do about that.
Do you believe that there's nothing at all left on the phone that could help the U.S. government and help in other terrorist cases?
I don't know that there's anything to support that there is any information
I'm
on
saying
it.
just because you have all the text messages and stuff like that doesn't mean there's nothing left on the phone.
The
For
only-
example, what if he was in his notes and he was saying, and don't, this is just an example, you don't have to laugh, what if, like bomb mall later, something like that. Like, or they had personal information in their notes about their friends, colleagues, and numbers, stuff like that.
And then I bring up my point again. Why would you leave that on your phone if you're about to commit an act of terrorism and you knew the government would try to
Because
seize
who
it?
thinks like
Doesn't
that?
know that
Terrorists thinks like that.
Terrorists think like
The
that.
people who are trying to
Are you a
kill
terrorist?
hundreds of people, they think like that.
It's just
Wouldn't
common
they have
sense.
just deleted their phone if
Yeah.
they were thinking like that?
Yeah, they would have.
Will the government
In
have
my
their
sense, they
phone?
would have
Why can't we
destroyed their
check
phone.
them?
But they
to
don't know
make
if there's
sure.
anything on it.
They would have,
Exactly.
if they were smart enough to delete some of their notes, then how weren't they smart enough to just get rid of their phone in general?
They got rid of their personal phones.
They got rid of 2 phones out of 3.
Okay, well, then
And they
why-
got rid of a
why
If
If
do
there's
we have
only
then?
one phone left, how can they say like
because it
that?
doesn't have any information on it.
Yeah, but if we don't know there's information on it, how can we not check if there's information on it? If you're saying that there might not even be any.
The whole
If we don't
discussion
check,
has
we
got
don't know.
into the Americans
They already
thinking that
solved the
people are just
crime.
going to
They
start
already-
looking
they
through their
already have all
phones
the
rather
information.
than
So you don't
thinking
think
about
that-
the important question
think
and their
it's
safety.
It's better to keep the rest of Americans safe if, say,
This
the
is about
government-
safety. There could
So-
be
I know,
another
but if the
terrorist
government
attack
looks
Yeah, but
on-
happening,
if
we
you,
don't
like-
know. Don't ever tell me.
So only the 14 people that were killed in the attack their families don't need any closure at
They
all
have
whatsoever.
closure.
How do they not have closure? How do they have closure if
They
it's not
have
even?
all of this
The shooters are
information
dead.
that the FBI already
shooters are
has.
dead.
That tells them exactly what has happened.
There still could be more out there, and we don't know.
There could always
There's
be more
de-
out there.
The FBI,
Not saying there could be. There's definitely more terrorists out there, but there could be more terrorists attached to this case. People that they were working with, groups that they were in.
Yeah, it
Obviously,
could-
they were in ISIS, but there could also be more people around in that area that they would have information of on their phones.
It could affect future terrorist attacks or anything that could happen that this phone could be linked to, and we don't know that. So, why not check?
The FBI is
Like, what's the
doing this
reason?
based off of the safety of Americans.
and the FBI is allowing Apple to open the phone on their own terms. They're not risking the encryption of the software to be released into the world.
This also affects the safety of people around the world. The State Department, one of their programs, helps activists and dissidents in a service called Internet in a Briefcase, and it relies on these encrypted text messages to evade censorship and to communicate. And this has helped people in the Arab Spring and in China with resisting tyrants, basically. And if if the FBI establishes this case and uses it as precedent, then there's no way to.
Who says that they're going to use it as precedent?
Who says that they won't?
No one.
that's
That's what
not-
we
and
don't,
the
we don't
government
know.
tries to get, the government tries to
can't
get
use
more
that in
power.
argument.
As soon as they have a little bit of power, they try to expand on it. That's the like. If you look at how
This
much
is still
power
a democracy.
Well,
if
all
I
right,
know
we bring
that.
up a good point with the government's power here is that the government does have a history of letting classified information like a software that they would use on terrorists out. For instance, Edward Snowden let thousands of documents out. Do we think that we can trust the government with this information, or do we think that it could get out there, compromise phones,
You just,
other
you
countries?
just don't know.
There's going to be a
Well-
possibility no matter
No one knows.
I think
Who
that
has
this
the
entire
information?
problem was established when Edward Snowden made his leaks because it made the entire technology industry start to mistrust the government. And that's why the encryption is so strong, and that's why they don't want to comply with this, because the government in the past has abused their power and spied on Americans. And that's why this is an issue.
But there's no
They spy
saying
on
that
Americans
the government
for our
is going
safety.
to do that again. They only want
a lie about
access
it.
to this one iPhone to help with this one case. They're
Right
not,
now.
They're not giving this information to everyone. And in order for the hackers to get this information, they would have to have the phone in their possession and the Apple's codes. And there's no saying that they're going to be able to get that. And the iOS is going to change, so the software will change soon. So
There'll
they'd
be a
have-
new encryption software.
And Apple even, I mean, the FBI even said that Apple, if they choose to, they could destroy it after they use the information to find that one phone's information on there. And if it's happening in the headquarters of Apple, it's not going to be leaked anywhere. It's monitored by Apple.
The phone needs to be unlocked in order to find closure for the families to help this case, and the information is for the unlocking of the codes is not going to be leaked because Apple is the one who will be doing it for the FBI. So it won't be given out to everyone and to the hackers because they'll have to have this information and the phone in their possession.
Can we be sure it's not going to be leaked, though? I guess that's
You
the
can't be
question. that
sure.
they wrote.
You
can never
can't be
be
sure about
sure, but I
anything
never did,
ever.
yeah.
Never.
So I guess the argument would be: is it worth it? That if we're not sure, is this one phone worth that?
Yes,
always have
because
to
it
take a
could
leap of
prevent
everything.
another attack like the San Bernardino shootings to see if they were in communications with anyone else, to see if they had any other plans for other attacks, and to see if the attack was directly related to the Islamic State, if it was against the United States.
But if the software that Apple would make, what if it goes wrong? Then thousands, millions,
And
and
that's
millions
Apple's,
of
that's not
millions of
FBI.
iPhones and people's privacy will be out.
Who says it was going to go wrong?
You never know.
If
You do. You
That's
never
what
know.
you said.
Never,
FBI
that's
doesn't have
everything's a
anything
debate.
to hide unless you're
But it's still
Any criminal
personal
activity.
information. You don't want
government
anyone
already
knowing
has
where
your
you live.
information.
All right, how
They
about
have
this?
their-
They let
It's not the
let
problem
every
isn't the
before they
government,
actually
the
government won't care, it's
undecrypt it.
other
They let
people.
everyone know, and then everyone has the chance. Say it, for example, everyone has like 2 weeks to take all this stuff off the phone, all your personal information, things like
You can't
that.
do that. You can't take
Why
The
not?
all
Why
FBI
your
is just
not?
using the grief of victims' families to try to establish this precedent.
It's the
That's
grief
all
of
they're
families
doing.
because people are dying, and that's what they're trying to
14
prevent.
Yes,
people
people
were
are dying.
killed and 22
Yeah.
were wounded. And
But they
if
already know
the
who
phone
did
is
it, and they
unlocked,
already
then
have
the
all of
families
They
the
do
will
know
finally
the
know
people
if there
who
were
did it, but
other
there also
attacks
could be
planned,
people
and
attached.
they will find the reason of why the shooting even occurred.
They know the reason that it
They
occurred.
don't know how.
They do.
They have
They
text
have the
messages.
information.
They do have text
the so-
messages,
they
but there could
got-
still be people attached to this case. That's what we're
and they
trying to
don't
tell
know
you.
how closely related it was to the Islamic State.
They
So
do, they do know. They have a witness who told a story. The story
Oh,
of
told a story. Okay.
he
Yeah.
told the story of the radicalization of the main terrorist.
As we wrap up our discussion, any final thoughts on each side?
Think about the safety of Americans. That's all I really have to say.
Think
Yeah.
about the
Think
safety of
about the privacy,
Americans.
yeah.
Safety is in life or death. How about that?
Safety, yeah, and the
Same
same.
thing.
It's the
Well,
same
yeah,
thing
it's
with
the same.
privacy.
How so?
We we
know
talked
about
about this.
Unfortunately, we are just about out of time. Again, we invite our viewers to email your thoughts and suggestions on this topic so we can continue this discussion in class. We thank Nauset High School's television production class, Lower Cape TV, for making this experience possible for all of us. And that concludes our segment of We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset Regional High School's AP US Government class. I'm Jacob Hirschberger, and thank you for watching.